Brilliant billionaire mocked mechanic for Ferrari translation, then an amazing truth was revealed. Ryan Sterling strode into the garage with an air of arrogance. His tailored suit contrasted sharply with the grease-stained overalls and worn-out mechanics bustling around him. Today, he was showcasing his latest luxury model, a vehicle crafted with precision and superiority. As Ryan inspected the sleek lines of his creation, he overheard Leo Garcia, a 30-year-old mechanic and single father, patiently translating a Ferrari manual for a customer. Ryan scoffed, dismissing the moment as beneath him. "What a pointless exercise," he muttered. An internal unease flickered in his chest, but he pushed it down, convincing himself that he was worlds apart from men like Leo. As he strolled among the gleaming machines, Ryan felt an invisible barrier set between them. Sure, he was a genius in design, celebrated and feared as he wielded the power of wealth and innovation. But was that really enough? The thought sent a rush of anxiety through him. He traded the thrill of creating marvels for the vacuum of genuine connection. Yet here was Leo, a simple mechanic striving to translate not just words, but dreams. Dreams Ryan had long since buried under corporate ambition. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Days later, everything changed. His latest line suffered a catastrophic design flaw, and Ryan was thrust into a storm of furious investors demanding answers. Panic washed over him as he sat in his glass office, the walls closing in, air thick with apprehension. The arrogant facade he maintained now felt more like a tremulous mask. He felt corners of his carefully built empire start to crumble. He had belittled Leo, yet now he found himself standing at the threshold of the very garage he had mocked, heart pounding with an unfamiliar mix of desperation and begrudging respect. With every step, Ryan braced himself to confront the man he had once ridiculed. When Leo looked up, surprise flashed across his face, but quickly transformed into an unreadable calm. "What do you need, Sterling?" Leo's voice held an edge, unyielding and challenging. The air between them crackled, a silent battle of wills. Ryan had a choice: cling to his pride, or seek help from the mechanic he once deemed unworthy. As he wrestled with uncertainty, he faced a gnawing doubt. Was it demeaning to ask for assistance? Or was it a necessary admission of his own failings? As they began collaborating, the dynamic shifted. Every disagreement echoed Ryan's internal conflict. Could he relinquish his superiority? Leo worked meticulously, weaving dreams through oil and metal, and suddenly, Ryan saw the world through a different lens. Yet lurking beneath, Ryan wrestled with the danger of vulnerability. The past haunted him like a specter, whispering of a connection lost, a shared legacy of craftsmanship that stretched beyond simple pride. How much further could he fall? How much more of himself could he reveal in this unfamiliar turmoil? The path before them lay cloaked in uncertainty, their differences fading yet looming larger than ever. As the garage lights flickered overhead, both men found themselves caught in an awkward stalemate. The stakes were high, but the question remained: would they bridge the abyss, or would their fates tear them apart? The morning sun filtered through the garage windows, casting a warm glow on the engines that lay in various states of assembly. Ryan stood by, watching Leo's hands dance over the machinery with a grace he could scarcely comprehend. The sharp lines of his tailored suit contrasted starkly with the grease that marred Leo's arms, yet Ryan felt an inexplicable allure toward the grit of this new environment. As he observed his collaborator, a burgeoning realization flickered in the back of his mind. This was not merely about fixing cars. This was about restoring something within himself. The tension from their first encounter still lingered between them, unspoken words hanging in the air. Ryan could still hear Leo's words. "What do you need, Sterling?" They echoed like a challenge, forcing him to confront his ego's grip. Gradually, he began to realize that each piece of feedback Leo offered wasn't a mere critique, but an invitation to grow. Would he dare to step out from behind the wall he had built around himself? During breaks, they spoke less about cars and more about personal dreams. Ryan found himself entangled in conversations about aspirations, fears, and the struggle for genuine connection. Leo spoke of his son, his determination to create a better life for him, radiating a resilience Ryan had long since forgotten. As the stories flowed, so did the realization that Ryan craved that kind of grounding honesty. He yearned for something stable to anchor his relentless ambition, a sense of purpose beyond the numbers and the accolades. Yet insecurity clawed at him. Could he really open up? Every time Ryan looked at Leo, doubt flashed. Would revealing his vulnerabilities reduce him to the very mockery he so despised? He found himself lifting tools he had only seen through the lens of business, understanding them now as instruments of creativity. Each attempt to lend a hand, or comprehend the mechanics, felt like venturing into uncharted territory, the fear of failure bubbling within him. But every failure came with the glimmer of possibility, and slowly, he embraced that fear. One afternoon, Ryan suggested a redesign for one of their projects. The idea shivered beneath layers of past caution, but Leo's eyes lit up with interest. Here was a moment, a chance to contribute. After deliberating together, they began sketching, blending Ryan's innovative approach with Leo's practicality, a fusion of worlds Ryan had never considered. Each proposal brought them closer, exposing the rawness of their partnership. Yet, as Ryan gestured toward the various models scattered throughout the garage, a nagging voice urged him to retreat. Perhaps he was overextending himself. The rhythmic clanging of metal echoed in his ears as he bit back the doubt, unwilling to yield. This time, he was determined not to let the past govern his present. Days turned into weeks, and the initial shock of their partnership began to fade, replaced by an emerging respect. Ryan wanted to trust this process, this collaboration. Yet as the deadline pressed closer, anxiety reared its head. How could he balance this newfound connection with the expectations waiting for him in his high-rise office? On the final day before their major presentation to investors, Ryan felt the weight of expectation crash against the buoyancy of discovery. No longer simply a billionaire disconnected from the everyday world, he was becoming someone else entirely. Standing in the garage, staring at the finished project, an amalgamation of their talents, he sensed he was on the brink of breakthrough. Would he launch into this new phase of his life with Leo by his side, or would fear pull him back to the confines of his previous self? Tomorrow would reveal a pivotal moment, one that could tilt the balance of their collaboration dangerously either way. As he stared deeply at the machine glistening under the fluorescent lights, he contemplated the risk. Was he ready to embrace his new identity in front of those expectant investors? The moment loomed closer. The time had come to face the question that terrified him the most. Could he reconcile who he was with who he was becoming? Morning broke with a renewed sense of purpose, but uncertainty twisted in Ryan's gut as he prepared for the presentation. The garage, once merely an immersive space of sound and machinery, now felt like a crucible, molding him into something he both wanted and feared. He took a long breath, feeling the cool morning air fill his lungs, allowing it to settle any lingering doubt. The duality of his existence pressed down on him like a weight, a billionaire in a tailored suit standing beside a mechanic in oil-stained attire. As he dressed in the crisp fabric, the reflection in the mirror revealed more than just his external garb. It highlighted his internal conflict, a contrast between two worlds that had begun to blur into one. Could he genuinely merge the man he had become with the businessman the world expected him to be? He glanced at his phone, the screen lighting up with notifications of a world clamoring for his decisions. Each ping was a reminder of deadlines, meetings, and profit margins. expectations that loomed like a specter over the burgeoning connection he had found with Leo. The clock ticked closer to the presentation time, and he doubled his resolve. In the garage, Leo was already poring over the final adjustments with furrowed brows, a stark contrast to his earlier enthusiasm. Ryan could perceive the anxiety emanating from him, as palpable as smoke from the engines they had been fine-tuning. This was a defining moment for both of them, yet the brittle tension threatened to fracture their collaboration. "Everything okay?" Ryan asked after stepping inside, the words almost faltering under the weight of their shared vulnerability. "Just tying up loose ends," Leo replied, barely breaking his focus. Yet in his response lingered an undercurrent of doubt. "I'm not sure the investors will get it." Ryan felt an unsettling jolt. Leo's uncertainty resonated deeply with his own fears. "What do you mean?" he pressed, moving toward the workbench where their project sat completed. "The vision we pushed for is unconventional. Investors don't always appreciate creativity. They want numbers. They want reassurance." In that moment, Ryan confronted the reason he had hesitated to share his vulnerabilities. This was not about mere monetary gains. It was a testimony to their persistence, their creativity, their willingness to redefine norms. "Then let's give them that assurance," he said, his voice steadying as he felt a rush of conviction wash over him. "Let's show them what we created together." Leo looked up, finally meeting Ryan's gaze. "You think we can really turn their skepticism into belief?" Ryan took a moment, poised between fear and ambition. "If we don't believe in this, how can we expect them to?" The words ignited a fire within him, an affirmation that he had found in this partnership. He realized that standing by Leo had brought clarity to his ambitions. His life wasn't solely about wealth, but about making meaningful contributions. As they prepared the final presentation together, Ryan regained a sense of belonging that transcended the confines of his previous life. The garage, filled with the scent of oil and metal, transformed into a space of innovation, possibilities thrumming like the engines they had assembled. Finally, standing together before the investors felt like a mirror reflecting both their respective strengths. The audience's skeptical faces were a mix of intrigue and doubt, and he could feel his heart racing. Was he ready to challenge their expectations? With a shared glance, they took their place at the forefront, and Ryan squared his shoulders. The moment called not just for a pitch, but for a declaration of their vision, an embodiment of both their worlds coming together. As Ryan opened his mouth to speak, the question loomed. Would he bind himself to the past, or launch into a wider expanse of potential? His voice echoed in the silence, the first words he spoke rippling through the tension-filled air, gripping tightly to the collective breath of possibility. As Ryan's words began to flow, he felt a surge of energy course through him. Every syllable was laced with the urgency of their mission, infused with the belief in their creation. He painted a picture of innovation, one that was not solely about numbers, but about the emotional resonance and societal impact intrinsic to their work. For the first time, he didn't just see himself as a billionaire. He embraced the identity of a creator, a visionary. Leo stood beside him, nodding slightly as Ryan spoke. Their contrasting backgrounds weren't a hindrance. They were the foundation of a richer narrative, one that sought to bridge the gap between cold capital and passionate craftsmanship. With each rhetorical flourish, Ryan leaned into his personal transformation, his voice aiming to disrupt the investors' perceptions, to provoke thought rather than appease expectations. Eyes darted from faces filled with skepticism to those that were beginning to spark with intrigue. But in the back of his mind, a flicker of self-doubt nagged at him. Was he truly breaking the boundaries of their conventional understanding of success? Or was he merely cloaking ambition beneath an elaborate facade? He could feel the weight of his past decisions hanging above him, but he pushed it aside, allowing the gravity of purpose to fill the vacuum. As he transitioned to the technical aspects of their work, Ryan noticed one investor's brow furrow in confusion. In a moment of vulnerability that could have unraveled him, Ryan took a breath and directly addressed the puzzled expression. "Let me explain it this way," he stated, embracing his impulse to connect personally. "This project isn't just about performance metrics or future sales. It's about building a community around a shared vision, the thrill of engineering excellence and the spirit of collaboration." Leo's eyes widened. A hint of surprise mingled with admiration. Ryan had not only recognized the importance of emotional appeal, but had transformed his financial narrative into one of shared values. As he continued, the presentation shifted, evolving into a dialogue rather than a monologue. He welcomed questions, inviting them into the heart of what they had constructed. The tension in the room began to dissipate. He witnessed a shift, a subtle but profound transformation among the investors who had initially viewed them as mere entrepreneurs seeking profit. They were beginning to see the passionate artisans who had dedicated themselves to crafting a revolutionary product. Yet, despite the positive responses from some, not everyone was swayed. One investor leaned forward, an analytical glint in his eye. "This all sounds impressive, Ryan, but what's your contingency plan if your vision fails? Creativity doesn't always translate to practicality." The question hung there, stark and biting. For a moment, the adrenaline that had fueled Ryan's confidence faltered. The prospect of failure loomed larger, threatening to unravel his carefully constructed narrative. It was a question he had pushed deep down, fearing its implications. "That's a fair point," Ryan responded, his voice steadier than he felt. The truth behind their innovative approach was layered with risks, yet each risk was a step toward growth, both personally and professionally. "Failure is not what I fear. It's stagnation. Every setback is an opportunity to learn, a lesson embedded in the journey. We are not merely the sum of our successes. We are defined by how we adapt and evolve." As he finished, Ryan looked around the room, searching for a flicker of understanding among the investors. He felt the burden of expectations pressing down on him, but alongside it blossomed a knot of determination. He had cleared a pathway from doubt towards newfound confidence. Yet the journey ahead remained uncertain. With the presentation drawing to a close, he could sense the growing debate among the investors. Some were clearly engaged, while others still appeared entrenched in skepticism. As they wrapped up, Ryan felt a surge of adrenaline combined with the sting of unanswered questions. The mix of vulnerability and assurance had opened a window, but the door to acceptance wasn't fully ajar. What followed would test everything they had built together. Would they venture forth against established norms, or would they slip back into the shadows of conventionality? As Ryan and Leo left the room, a palpable tension wrapped around them, tinged with possibility. Time was ticking away. The investors' verdict could change the trajectory of their lives, igniting a momentous shift or plunging them back into obscurity. Each step echoed the question. Would they have the courage to face a world that might still reject them? The hum of conversation faded as Ryan and Leo stepped into the hallway, the weight of uncertainty amplifying with each passing second. Ryan's pulse throbbed in sync with his thoughts, racing ahead like a runaway train. Had they piqued interest, or had they merely momentarily delayed disappointment? Leo's need for reassurance lingered in the air. "What now?" he finally asked, his voice steady but laced with concern. Ryan met Leo's gaze, searching for clarity in his own mind. "I think we've turned a corner, but it's a long road ahead. We need to capitalize on this. However they respond, we must push onward." The determination ignited a flicker of excitement within him. Each risk he had articulated to the investors began to crystallize more clearly. Yet, the gnawing dread of rejection still hovered in the corners of his consciousness. It was unfamiliar territory, stepping from the known into the possibility of failure intertwined with hope. As they navigated through the building, Ryan recalled countless late nights spent over sketches and prototypes. Each ounce of energy dedicated felt challenged now, suspended in the gravity of the investor's scrutiny. The truth lingered heavily in his thoughts. He had allowed fear to shadow him for too long, This moment demanded that he transcend his insecurities. "Let's regroup and strategize," he said, his voice regaining its firmness. "We need to analyze the feedback and refine our approach, address those doubters directly. We have to convince them that our vision isn't just a dream, it's a necessity." Leo nodded but added, "What if we don't get the backing? What if we are forced to pivot yet again?" The uncertainty pricked at Ryan's resolve, but he refused to let it fracture his focus. "Then we pivot," he countered, "but we do it knowing we've given everything to this vision. We're not just creators, we're adaptable. If anything, we emerge stronger." The intensity of his own words underscored something profound within him, the resilience that came from embracing risk. With each challenge, he was becoming less of an entrepreneur defined by success and more of an innovator willing to dance with failure. It was a pivotal awakening, the realization that personal growth thrived in discomfort. As they settled in a small conference room, Ryan pulled out a whiteboard, sketching out their product roadmap while Leo logged in investor comments into his laptop. The process sparked a renewed commitment in Ryan. He envisioned each note as a potential growth point. "Every question, every challenge can lead us to a more refined proposal," he mused aloud, feeling a sense of empowerment replace the vulnerability. Suddenly, an idea struck him, a way to directly address the investors' fears about practicality. What if he showcased tangible prototypes during the follow-up meeting? Show them not just the vision, but the potential reality. His fingers danced over the whiteboard, sketching out a narrative filled with possibilities. "Leo, what if we demonstrate our product's results in a real-world environment? We could simulate customer interactions, showcase the feedback loop. We're not just selling a dream. We can show them we've thought this through." Leo's face brightened, his earlier skepticism giving way to enthusiasm. "And maybe we could include a personal story, our journey that highlights our evolution. It would create a connection." "Yes," Ryan felt the energy viral between them. "We pair our innovative process with our personal investment. It's not just about the product, it's about us, what drives us. That connection could be the key to bridging their skepticism." As they sketched, the room buzzed with renewed energy, and Ryan found himself smiling. The transformation he craved was underway, but now it was tied to an understanding deeper than before. It wasn't merely a bid for funding, it was a challenge to redefine their future. Yet, lurking behind the excitement was a palpable apprehension as they prepared for the next encounter. Outside, the world moved on, ignorant of their transformative journey, leaving Ryan to question how far he was truly willing to go. As they wrapped up their strategy, Ryan whispered to himself, "This is no longer just about the vision. It's about making believers out of everyone, including ourselves." Little did he know, the true test of his resolve awaited just around the corner, an unforeseen challenge that would confront his newly forged beliefs head-on. Would he have what it took when the past came knocking once more? The next morning arrived with a sense of urgency that seemed to crackle in the air. Ryan awoke with the sun streaming through his window, illuminating the constructive chaos of sketches and notes scattered around his bedroom. The intensity that had permeated his thoughts over the last few days erupted anew as he recalled the feedback from the investors. Their skepticism felt louder now, a drumbeat echoing in his mind, pushing him forward but also causing him to grapple with an unsettling doubt. As he quickly dressed, he couldn't shake the feeling that the stakes had risen. This was not merely about winning over investors. It was about proving to himself that he could navigate through uncertainty. He was no longer that hesitant entrepreneur that he once was, but a man determined to carve out his own path, one molded by both fear and hope. In the office, Leo was already engrossed in drafting their presentation for the investors, shuffling through notes while muttering half-formed ideas. Ryan admired his partner's ability to grasp concepts and weave them into something tangible. He also envied Leo's unwavering confidence, wondering if he too could embody that assurance, if only for a moment. "We need to nail the introduction," Ryan said, leaning against the desk, attempting to divert his racing thoughts. It has to be compelling enough to capture their attention right away. We should start with our story, the challenges we faced, how our product is the answer. Leo looked up, a smile creeping across his face. Exactly. Let's show them how we've evolved, how our frustrations became the catalysts for innovation. It will humanize us, make them relate to our journey. They delved into the presentation, pairing innovative concepts with personal anecdotes. The creative energy flowed, and Ryan felt a shift within. This was not just about technical details or market research. It was showcasing the heart behind their project. Yet in the back of his mind, the fear of vulnerability coursed through him. What if sharing their personal story left them exposed? What if it was met with mockery rather than empathy? The more they worked, the more Ryan recognized the tangled mess of his inner anxieties, his fear of failure, of being seen as inadequate. They were paralyzing, but he couldn't allow them to dictate his choices anymore. There was something powerful about letting go of that fear to embrace authenticity. Let's practice the pitch before we go in, he proposed. Leo nodded, and as they took turns presenting to each other, Ryan felt his confidence swell. However, midway through, uncertainty etched its way back into Ryan's mind. The memory of previous failures loomed like a shadow, whispering arguments against his renewed outlook. He stalled, a physical tremor coursing through him as Leo looked expectantly, encouraging him with a nod to continue. His shoulders squared. Ryan dug deep, recalling that moment in the hallway after the meeting when he decided to embrace their vision despite the fear. We have to remember why we started this, he finally said, his voice steadying. It was about solving a problem we experienced ourselves. We're not just trying to sell something. We're fighting for something bigger. Leo's eyes brightened. That's why I partner with you. You have the ability to channel those doubts into something raw and real. Don't hide from it. Embrace it. We can talk about those initial failures. They can become our greatest strengths. The realization struck with clarity. His past was not a shackle but a foundation. Each failure had shaped him, igniting the intensity of his drive. Their product was more than a solution. It was a testament to resilience crafted through trial and error. They wrapped up their practice and prepared for the final meeting. As Ryan looked at Leo, he felt that familiar hope swell within him. It felt as if the past hadn't just come knocking. It was offering a partnership. It had forged him into who he was today. Are we ready for this? Ryan asked, surprise rising within him as he recognized the authenticity ringing through his voice. More than ever, Leo replied, uncertainty burnt away by determination. As they left the office, an unexpected message pinged on Ryan's phone. A communication from one of the investors that made his stomach drop. It was a challenge, a request that would put both their product and their emotional readiness to the test. Deep down, Ryan understood this would embroil them in a struggle that would demand everything he had built within himself. In that moment, he resolved that this was the turning point he sought. Nothing could deter him now. He needed to show that he could stand against the unexpected. Ryan stared at his phone, the words blurring as an adrenaline rush flooded his veins. The message wasn't just a routine inquiry. It was a challenge that hinted at a deeper skepticism regarding their product and vision. The investors' demand required them to conduct a competitive analysis with a tight deadline, showcasing their product against established market leaders. The stakes had elevated, and Ryan felt the weight of expectation more acutely than ever. He took a moment to breathe, reminding himself of the resolve he had forged during the presentation preparations. This was an opportunity to confront the fear that had long restrained him. Positivity surged within him, yet an unsettling voice nagged at the edges of his consciousness. What if they failed again? Ryan? Leo's voice broke through his thoughts. You okay? Yeah, just processing, Ryan replied, forcing a smile. We have a request from Morrison that's, let's say, a bit more complex than I expected. Complex is our middle name, Leo said, his brows raised playfully. What's the ask? Ryan read through the message again, feeling every word sink deeper. They want us to analyze how our solution stacks up against similar products on the market. They'll want stats, comparisons, testimonials, the whole shebang. We have to prove that we're not just another entry on the list, but are real contenders. Leo leaned against the office wall. This is our moment, then. It's time to showcase what we've been raving about. That authenticity and innovation are the core of our model. Let's dive in. The exhilaration of the moment felt contagious. Ryan was reminded of their brainstorming sessions, where ideas ignited and merged into solutions they had barely imagined. But beneath that excitement, a trickle of fear crept back in. What if their product didn't hold up against the giants? What if their past missteps echoed into the present, suffocating their progress? We have to dig deep, Ryan said, squaring his stance. Research is one thing, but we need to ensure our narrative is compelling on top of hard data. Let's back up our journey with our strengths, our story, our struggles, and the solutions we provide. Can you start with market analysis? I'll look into client feedback. Leo nodded approvingly. That's the spirit. I'll pull data on competitors and highlight their weaknesses. As they heatedly parsed through numerous documents and online comparisons, Ryan felt invigorated, not just by the challenge, but by the collaborative energy between them. Each statistic they uncovered painted their product in a stronger light, feeding into the convictions they would present. Uncertainty about their past no longer loomed as a dominant shadow. It felt more like a challenging facet of their identity. Their hours turned into a whirl of discovery and renewed ambition. Walls of doubt began to chip away, revealing the essence of what drove Ryan forward, the conviction that genuine narratives could disrupt industries and transform minds. Wait a second, Ryan said, typing furiously. There's a pattern here. Our product addresses the very gaps these leaders overlook: user experience and accessibility. What if we craft our analysis around that? Leo's eyes twinkled as inspiration struck. We highlight not just the product itself, but how it reflects who we are, problem solvers with real stakes. It's all about a customer-first approach. As they optimized their research and merged their findings into a cohesive narrative, Ryan felt a transformative shift in his demeanor. This wasn't merely about proving a point. It was about reclaiming their identity as entrepreneurs. He embraced the truth that fear and vulnerability could coexist with strength and conviction. By nightfall, exhaustion hit, but it brought satisfaction rather than dread. Ryan felt a renewed sense of commitment not simply to their product, but to the relationship he and Leo had built. Suddenly, Ryan's phone buzzed again, snapping him from his thoughts. Please tell me it's an endorsement, Leo teased, eager for positive news. Nope, Ryan replied, his heart sinking. The latest investor's query offered a more stringent deadline. It was a reminder that their path was not only winding, but clouded with pressures he had yet to fully acknowledge. The feeling of discomfort settled in. But instead of retreating, Ryan found a resilient ember sparked within him. He couldn't approach this as a mere task. It had to be a catalyst for deeper personal growth. Facing these challenges meant re-examining the capacity that he had unearthed within. Let's go all in, Ryan said firmly. He met Leo's gaze, his stare imbued with fierce determination. It's time to show them what we're made of. As they exchanged a knowing glance, Ryan could feel the undercurrents of his journey shifting. He was on the brink of something immense, yet he knew that this only marked the beginning of a greater trial ahead. But what lay in the shadows beyond their imminent presentation was still to be discovered, a challenge that could further test their newfound resilience. The following day, Ryan arrived at the office early, his heart racing with a concoction of anticipation and anxiety. They had one shot to impress the investors, and they needed to refine their presentation into something more than a report. It had to echo their commitment to innovation. Morning, Leo called out, lifting his coffee cup. Ready to dissect the giants? Ryan forced a laugh but felt the weight of the day pressing down on him. Let's see what we've got. They set to work, their focus laser sharp. Hours poured into the project, countless articles and reviews turned into charts and graphs, all while their narrative solidified in real time. As they progressed, Ryan's mind danced between careful calculation and instinctive impulse. Each finding wasn't just data. It was ammunition against the lingering doubts. Suddenly, an unexpected thought sparked in his mind. A realization about his own limitations and the potential resistance from their lead investor. He had to address the core fear that shadowed their narrative, the past failures. Leo, Ryan interjected, what if we turned our biggest mistake into a strength? Show how we learned from it, rather than bury it in the fine print. I like it, Leo nodded thoughtfully. It humanizes us. Everyone loves an underdog story, especially when it's more than just a narrative but a reflection of resilience. Ryan savored the moment. His instinct for storytelling had guided them here. Yet another realization dawned. He had buried aspects of his capabilities, allowing self-doubt to stifle initiative. As they sculpted their presentation, their office transformed into a hive of activity. Energy surged as ideas surfaced and flourished. Ryan's confidence solidified with every cohesive sentence crafted. His internal dialogue shifted from fear to recognition of value. They were no longer aspiring entrepreneurs. They were problem solvers equipped for a battle. Hours flew by, and just as fatigue threatened to overwhelm, Ryan had an epiphany. Let's end with a bold statement, something that encapsulates the heart of our brand. Leo considered it. What about something like, we don't just build products, we reshape experiences? Simple but impactful. Exactly, Ryan agreed. It needs to resonate and inspire. Yet, as they pieced together the final threads, an internal dissonance nagged at Ryan. Could he truly embody the role of a leader? Was he equipped to stand before a panel of investors and justify their existence against well-established competitors? Ryan, Leo's voice was gentle. You look miles away. What's on your mind? Ryan hesitated, grappling with the vulnerability growing within. What if I falter in front of them? What if I can't convey our worth adequately? Leo shook his head, a smile forming. Or, what if you blow their minds? Your passion shines in every idea we've developed here. Just remember this moment, when you took control of your narrative. Ryan clung to those words, igniting a fire of determination. This wasn't just a presentation. It was an opportunity to redefine himself not solely as a cog in the machine, but as a driving force. The day of the presentation loomed closer, and every heartbeat echoed the dual rhythm of excitement and apprehension. Arriving at the meeting room, Ryan could feel the electric pulse of the stakes weighing heavily on his chest. He glanced at the charts and graphs, the culmination of their efforts now laid out before him like armor, shimmering with potential. As the investors filed in, each composed expression fueled Ryan's resolve. He would confront this challenge head-on, channeling each lesson learned from past failures into a bold portrayal of their narrative. But just as he took his place at the front, an unexpected figure emerged from the crowd, a rival entrepreneur who had insulted Ryan's work online months ago. The air thickened, and the room buzzed with an anticipation that was palpable. The time had come to face not just the investors, but also his own lingering insecurities. What would this confrontation hold for him? And could he rise above it? Ryan swallowed hard, feeling the pressure of destiny weighing on his shoulders, unaware of how this meeting would change everything. Ryan's pulse quickened as he caught sight of Marcus, the rival entrepreneur, leaning against the wall with an insufferable smirk plastered across his face. The insult that had once pierced through Ryan like a dagger surged back into his memories, like a scratch on a record that repeated itself each time he least expected it. Why did he have to be here today? As the investors settled, he forced his gaze away from Marcus, focusing instead on the warmth of the room, the contours of their meticulously crafted presentation glistening under the fluorescent lights. The tension hung heavily in the air, thick enough to suffocate. Every breath Ryan took punctuated by the weight of unspoken rivalries. He tuned into Leo's voice, anchoring him back to the present. "We'll take you through our journey," Leo began, his tone steady. Ryan felt a swell of pride for his partner. Leo had a natural confidence that was contagious. But as Ryan stepped up to share their vision, doubt threatened to creep back in. The memories of past failures, the crushing rejections, the ridicule, conspired against him. The investors asked detailed questions, their eyebrows knitting together in skepticism each time they mentioned market strategy and past setbacks. Ryan prepared his responses, armed with the narrative they had painstakingly crafted. Then came the moment. "Ryan," one investor leaned forward, challenge etched in her features. "How can you convince us that this time will be different?" A flurry of responses spun in his mind, yet, as he opened his mouth, he felt a rush of clarity crystallize his thoughts. "Let me tell you about failure," he said, his voice unexpectedly steady. "There's a prominent name in the tech industry who has also faced fierce critique, but turned those lessons into milestones for achievement." He glanced at Marcus, who watched with amusement. "We took a look at our past, at every stumble. We weren't just building a product. We were building character. We're not making the same mistakes again. We've evolved." He shared anecdotes, weaving a narrative of resilience that enveloped the room, realizing he wasn't just defending their position against the investors or Marcus. He was reclaiming his own story. The metamorphosis from doubt to defense, from obscurity to authority, ignited something powerful within him. With each word, Ryan felt Marcus's jeer fading. He no longer felt bound by their history. Instead, he understood his own worth. He was no longer a mere mechanic in the grand scheme of innovation. He was a master craftsman, able to keep the grand machine of their vision running smoothly despite the odds. By the end of their presentation, the energy in the room shifted. The investors' nodding heads and glimmers of interest felt like a sudden surge of potential energy waiting to be unleashed, while Ryan glimpsed a flicker of uncertainty flash across Marcus's face. As questions turned to discourse, Ryan felt Leo's supportive gaze, a reminder that he wasn't alone in this battle. He had transcended his own insecurities, channeling the very adversity that once stifled him into a compelling narrative, a true reflection of their mission. Yet, even as rounds of applause filled their ears, a gnawing thought surfaced. Had he truly silenced his insecurities? Or had he merely shoved them beneath the surface? The thought lingered, bringing with it a sense of unease. Just as the meeting appeared to be drawing to a close, Marcus approached, a look of calculated provocation on his face. "Interesting show, Ryan. But can you really keep this momentum?" Ryan braced himself, but instead of defensive mechanisms instinctively kicking in, he took a breath, feeling the solidity of his narrative beneath his skin as he prepared to fire back with clarity. Momentum is nothing without resilience, and I've learned how to keep both. The confidence he had cultivated felt both exhilarating and foreign, a bridge across an ever-expanding chasm between who he was and who he was becoming. But in that moment, as Marcus retorted with a sharp comeback, Ryan recognized the familiar specter of doubt whispering in his ear once more. This confrontation was far from over. As he squared his shoulders, a new determination took root inside him, one that dared him to engage, not just with Marcus, but with the very essence of his journey. In that moment, he realized, this was not merely a battle for investor approval. It was a fight for his own self-acceptance. How long could he sustain this newfound conviction? What other challenges awaited him, not just in the boardroom, but deep within the labyrinth of his own mind? The next days erupted in a whirlwind of introspection and opportunity for Ryan. The investors had responded enthusiastically, a promising glimpse into their future. Yet amid this budding success, a battle raged within him. As he sat in his office, reviewing feedback from the meeting, He couldn't help but reflect on a pivotal moment. The contrast between the man he was and the man he wanted to become felt starkly pronounced. Ryan acknowledged that true confidence was not solely the absence of doubt, but rather the embrace of it. He had faced Marcus head-on, not letting past insecurities dictate his worth, and that empowered him to push beyond the confines of their previous discussions. Each conversation with Leo deepened their bond, brick by brick solidifying their shared vision. As they strategized together, Ryan found strength in vulnerability. This wasn't just a partnership, it was a transformative experience that cultivated authenticity across professional lines. By the end of the week, they had revamped their strategy, answering investor concerns while incorporating personal anecdotes that expressed their journey. Ryan felt it. Each time he articulated their evolution, he aligned his work with genuine emotion, reinforcing both their mission and integrity. As they prepared for the follow-up meeting, Ryan discovered an exhilarating blend of determination and resilience coursing through him. He was grounded, not in fear of judgment, but in a desire to showcase their progress, their story, a testament to their commitment. On the day of the presentation, anticipation replaced anxiety. As he stood in front of the investors once again, he squared his shoulders, consciously shaking off the weight of passing doubts. Leo's reassuring nod fueled him, and as he launched into their refined pitch, Ryan drew upon the lessons learned from their failures. "Today we stand not just with a product," he began, his voice clear and unwavering. "We present a vision sculpted from experience, through setbacks, laughter, and the grit it takes to innovate." This shift in perspective resonated with the audience. Ryan had redefined what it meant to be a leader. He demonstrated that competence stemmed from an understanding of both success and failure. The data he had shared was crisp and relevant, but it was his impassioned storytelling that caught the investors' attention. Success was no longer merely measured by financial metrics. It was encapsulated in the spirit behind every decision, every challenge overcome. With each word, Ryan solidified not just their value proposition, but his own identity as a visionary, a man who had transformed through the relentless pursuit of self-discovery. As the presentation concluded and applause echoed across the room, an unexpected sense of fulfillment washed over him. It was not the validation from the investors, but the unyielding growth within himself that marked this moment as truly monumental. The meeting ended, leaving them with multiple offers and concrete plans for their next steps. As Ryan shook hands with the investors, a crowning achievement emerged. He had not only secured funding, he had obliterated the walls he had erected around himself, stepping confidently into the light of his own potential. Reflecting on his journey, Ryan realized that personal fulfillment was never about stature or acknowledgement. It was deeply connected to the courage to embrace authenticity. He had conquered his internal battles, building solid confidence as both a leader and a partner. And as he stepped out of that room, he held within him not just recognition, but a profound promise to remain committed to his vision, despite any future uncertainties. Ryan Garcia had emerged transformed, ready to champion innovation while fostering authentic connections. The mechanic he once deemed unworthy had become a collaborator, orchestrating monumental achievements together. In this moment of clarity, he vowed to continuously harness growth, understanding that transformation was a journey, one that doesn't stop after a single achievement. Now it was his turn to give back, to inspire others to pursue their own authentic journeys. He saw the importance of sharing his story, and thus he engaged with the community, offering mentorship to aspiring entrepreneurs. As he did, he felt the last threads of doubt unraveling, leaving behind a fabric woven with experiences and lessons. In that humbling turn of events, Ryan embraced a newfound purpose, a compass guiding him toward future endeavors, shining brightly with the knowledge of who he had become. Now, if you want to witness more transformative stories, subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional journeys. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, because every click counts. This is the moment to show your support. Comment below your reactions and theories about the ending. Join the conversation. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. True fans of overcoming challenges understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.